Call the city council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Cadella.
Here.
Alderman Knight.
Here.
Alderman Cole.
Here.
Alderman Lewiton.
Here.
Alderman Police.
Here.
Alderman Shockey.
Here.
Alderman Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Winger. Here. Mayor Johnson.
Here, quorum being present, would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? May I have a motion to approve the minutes, March 20th, 2008?
So moved. Second.
Second. Any comments, corrections, additions? Who seconded? Alderman Cadella. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bills, Alderman Wesley.
I'll make the motion to pay the bills $279,108.21.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question, Alderman Cadella.
Item, let's see, page 13, vendor Monterey Floor Covering Inc. This is the vinyl floor in the rotunda. I'm not real happy with the way it came out. Before we approve a payment, I'd like to get some information from staff on what the vendor's future plans are for making it look right, particularly the gaps at the base and some of the seams that seem to be curling up.
Mr. Mervis?
This is not a final payment, so this is half of the payment agreed upon. We did go out for bids for this. They were quite significantly cheaper than all the other vendors involved, and they are coming out to, they are cooperating and, fixing any of the negatives that were in there.
Okay, so the clarification is this is about half the contract amount. Thank you.
Anything further? Alderman Shockey?
Question for Gary, if I may. We have a truck with the TV in it and a camera that goes underground and equipment on it to find water lines and so forth, if I'm not mistaken, right? And we just upgraded that truck, 2 years ago?
We have a sewer televising truck that we work in combination with our flusher and our Vector to televise our sanitary sewers.
Now, we've got sensors on there to find sewer and water lines.
Well, it's a televising truck. You send a robot through the pipe and you look at the condition of the pipes, and that's how you identify deficiencies in the pipes.
I thought we had something on the truck that could actually look in the ground and tell where the pipe was, where a water pipe or...
Not in that truck. I mean, we have locators.
Okay, we have locators.
Sure.
Okay, then I have a question on page 16, the second item. SM&P Utility Resources, underground locates. Why are we getting charged for 4 times for locating underground utilities?
Those are actually locates that are split between streetlights, storm, sanitary, and water. We contract with SM&P to do all of our locating services. We have since 2006. That service is being done and was approved by council as a cost-saving measure. Since 2006, we've spent about $24,000 with them, and that's the equivalent. They've saved us the equivalent of like 1 full-time person. So obviously, since 2006, we would have paid more than $24,000 to a full-time person to do all those locates. So that's what SM&P is our locating service.
But we have the same equipment, locating equipment in-house.
We do, but again, it takes about a full-time person to perform all of our locates. By contracting it out, for the last 18 months or 24 months, we've only spent $24,000 as opposed to performing that service in-house with a full-time person. Certainly, their salary alone would have been around 3 to 4 times that
But
amount.
it's not a full-time thing, is it? It's just once in a while that they need to, there's 4 times, for instance, here.
Well, and I have to, I'm not going to do my calculator right now, but if you divide 24,000 by $17.50,
Where's the 24,000? I don't. comes at
That's
four-
about
oh,
how
that
much
for
we've
the-
spent with
for
them
the
over
year?
the last. So over the last 18 months, we've done approximately 1,400 utility locates.
What does each locate cost $105 and
No.
69 cents?
No,
or-
that's just the total of this invoice. This invoice then gets split 4 ways: storm, sanitary, water, and streetlights. And the grand total of the invoice then, which I just run off the page, so I don't have it in front of me anymore, but the grand total of the invoice got split 4 ways. Each locate's about $17 roughly. I just went off the top of my head. I know what our contract is with SM&P. So if I take the total that we've spent with SM&P over the last 18, 24 months, we've done about 1,400 locates. That's about full-time equivalent. Now, sometimes it's actually 2 guys working during the busy summer months and a half a guy working during the slow winter months. But in general, as was presented to and approved by council, this is about the equivalent of 1 full-time person that we're only paying $24,000 to.
And the council did approve that,
Yes, they did back in
'cause I
June.
don't remember that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Roll call.
Alderman Coles?
Yes.
Alderman Police?
Yes.
Alderman Knight?
Yes.
Alderman Cadella?
Yes.
Alderman Shockey?
Yes.
Alderman Winger?
Yes.
Alderman Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Lewiton?
Yes.
That passes. Do any citizens wish to address the city council this evening? I do not have any written communiques.
I had a phone call about a half hour ago from somebody who wanted to express an issue. Is it
Alderman
possible?
Lewiton, if you'd use your microphone.
Thank you. I had a call from Mr. Bishop, who was complaining about excessive parking from a restaurant in front of his house, and he wanted to know if we could review the issue or give him recommendation, because it was decided at one of the meetings that Sweet Baby Ray's would not use the parking area on the street, and that they would consider using paid parking that the city has available. But we don't know whether he has done that or not, but we do know that we are getting calls from Mr. Bishop. I may not be the only one who is, he has a grievance against the constant parking of cars in front of his house. Even though there is no restriction, there is no city law banning that parking. Who would we refer this to get back to him on?
I think, to answer his question, I think you just referred it to the police chief, who took a note. But Mr. Bishop, do you want to go to the podium and fill us in with further information?
I have no problem with overflow parking from customers. When an employer tells his people to park in the street instead of his parking lot or another facility, I have a problem with that. I don't think it's right, and that's all I have to say.
You're referring to employee parking, they're parking there all day?
Or 4 hours or more, 3 hours or 4 hours. I have no problem with overflow from Tom's Axe or whatever, but I do not like an imposition where a business comes in and tells their employees to park on the street. Thank you.
Yeah, it was part of the presentation that they were not to be doing that. And Mr. Bishop, for the record, the clerk would like your address.
.281 North Maple Avenue.
Very good, thank you, sir. We'll follow up on it. That brings us to Mayor's Report. Council, I place before you a request by the Wooddale Park District to waive non-out-of-pocket expenses, building permit fees for the Wooddale Park District. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Mayor's Report, it seems like this last week I've been on the funding tour, prepping for our meeting down in Springfield. Sunday, I had the opportunity to meet with State Representative Rebeletti, and he advised that the $75,000 check for the pathway, the sidewalk over Salt Creek, that check is in the mail, subject to being released by the governor. Did set up a meeting for those of us going to Springfield with Skip Saviano. Had the opportunity to talk to Carol Pankow about funding the 20% state match on the Safety Lou funding for the city of Wooddale, which would be $2 million from the state. Met with Peter Roskin and his staff. Jeff prepared our capital improvement list of our wish list for funding for the sewer plant upgrades and the grade improvements at Irving and Wooddale Road and some other projects, and he is taking that up as part of the next transportation bill. And just tonight, I met with Dewey Parati, chairman of the Forest Preserve, and he advised me that funding is once again available for buyouts along the creek. So anybody who is interested as a resident of the city of Wooddale can contact City Hall or can contact the Forest Preserve directly. They did get the money released from the state of Illinois. So that money, the buyout program, is once again available on strictly a voluntary basis. Mr. Manager?
No report.
That brings us to the consent agenda. Is there any objections to any items on the consent agenda? Which is one item. Can I just go motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve Clefstead Lift Station, approval of contract to John Mary Construction not to exceed $437,450? Such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Alderman, please.
second it.
Second by Alderman Coles. On the question? Roll call.
Alderman Coles?
Yes.
Alderman Police?
Yes.
Alderman Knight?
Yes.
Alderman Cadella?
Yes.
Alderman Shockey?
Yes.
Alderman Winger?
Yes.
Alderman Wesley?
Yes.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
That passes. That brings us to planning, zoning, and building. Alderman Shockey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is a report and recommendation on the Caring Dental Center, a request for letter of credit reduction at 405 East Irving Park Road. Any questions, or do I have a motion?
Are you making a motion?
Sure.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Alderman Coles on the question. Alderman Cadella.
Question, upon final inspection by Bennis, there was one item that needed to be addressed. Has that in fact been taken care of? Something about detachable warnings on the sidewalk ramps? Question to staff, I suppose.
Mr. Noack?
I don't have information on that, whether that was finally approved or not. I apologize for that, but I have nothing to indicate whether it was or wasn't.
Anything further? Alderman Winger?
Well, if we don't know if the issue was resolved, then I'm going to vote no until we know. Thank you.
Anything further?
Why don't we make a motion to table then, till we find out the rest of the information?
Is that your motion?
Yes,
Is
please.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Second item, report and recommendation on petitioner Elmhurst Builders requests a re-subdivision of Arborwood subdivision. This re-subdivision would create one additional single-family residence lot within the subdivision. This lot would be located on an existing outlot which is originally set aside for detention. The detention is no longer necessary for the development due to the improvements of other Lennar detention facilities which benefit the development. So I will make a motion to authorize the city attorney to draw up the necessary ordinances to allow for re-subdivision, to revise subdividers agreement, and to allow for recapture, plus all the bells and whistles that we added on last week.
Is that a technical term?
Yes, yes. The sidewalks and the street on Pine and the sidewalk on Potter and so forth, It's all in the minutes. That's my motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Cadella, Alderman Coles.
I have a question. I was over there Sunday, and you want a sidewalk on the east side, on the north side, on Porter. Yes, you did, you asked.
South side. It's on the south side of Potter.
The south side of Porter, but
Yes.
it's the north side of their, project.
Well,
But
the
there is
pro-
no curbs on the street. You're gonna put a sidewalk in with no curbs?
Yeah, the street will have to be redone. The initial,
It's gonna look funny to have a sidewalk with no curbs.
well, the initial request was with the street being done, but that was withdrawn by the builder before we approved it. So at least we're getting a sidewalk out of it rather than nothing.
All right.
Alderman Knipe.
Yeah, I thought there was a consideration there because there's culverts versus, it's not on the north side?
That's on the north.
Mr. Noack?
Thank you. Alderman Knipe, that was the consideration for the north side of Potter.
Okay.
Anything further? All in favor, say aye.
Abstain.
Roll call.
Alderman Coles?
I'll say yes.
Alderman Police?
Abstain.
Alderman Knight?
No.
Alderman Cadella?
Yes.
Alderman Shockey?
Yes.
Alderman Winger?
Yes.
Alderman Wesley? Abstain. Alderman Lewitton?
Yes.
I'm abstaining.
No.
Well, you didn't say
Yes.
anything. Okay.
All right, that passes.
Third item is a report and recommendation on sign code ordinance amendment relating to the non-conforming signs within the proposed grade separation area, and on advice from council, I would suggest I make a motion to table until the next committee meeting. We may have to have a hearing on this, I understand.
Before I get a second, let me, Ms. Dixon?
Actually, the recommendation that we would make is that this matter be referred back to PZB for further discussion, because if you are going to recommend the text amendment that was discussed, I've consulted with John Forrest, and I think we need to do a further amendment to allow for an appropriate amortization provision if we do this elimination. And for that purpose, our recommendation is that it go back to PZB for further discussion, and then it would require the public hearing after that.
That's exactly what my motion would state.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
All right, let's take a,
Roll call.
thank you. Alderman Coles?
The votes, this is
The
the
current-
table, excuse
This
me,
is
Mayor.
this is to
table.
table it, right?
The, let
Send it
me
back.
Send it back.
refer back to, the current motion is a motion to table to send it back. Let me, before I call for the vote, again, refer
Okay,
to
I-
our city attorney that we cannot dispose of this tonight, that a public hearing is going to be necessary before, but let me not speak for the city attorney.
I withdraw my motion to table.
Okay, let me explain then, and you should have a motion, or you should have a memorandum in front of you as well. I believe that if the council cannot or should not vote on this issue tonight, because the amendment that you're seeking to make would be removing, would be changing the ordinance such that there are various signs that are legal now that you would be saying are subject to the amortization provision. The first issue that I have with that is that I think it's important for you to know which signs are going to be affected by this change, because there are some signs that would fall within an amortization, which would have them having to be removed by June of 2009. There are other signs that may not have to be removed until June of 2011. I think it's important for you to know, if you're going to be making this change, how many signs are out there that are going to be affected, and also to take into consideration that when you adopted the original amortization provision, it was for 2 different time periods, for 3 years and for 5 years. So if you make this change tonight, you would be saying effectively some people would only be getting 1 year rather than a 3-year or 5-year. And if you are going to be affecting, that type of change to the sign code, I think it's important, and the city should provide for a public hearing so that the people whose signs will be affected would have the opportunity to know the change is going to occur, and so that they could come and talk to the city council about that. So that would be the reason that I would want it to be referred to PZB, because I do think you should know which signs are being affected and to allow for an appropriate amortization provision for those signs.
That being said, we did have a motion on the table to refer back to PZB. However, are you attempting to withdraw that motion?
We have a discussion on it first because there's,
You may have a discussion, that's the reason why.
Now, the motion is now to return this matter to the Planning, Zoning, and Building Committee for further discussion.
Are you
Schedule a
amending-
public hearing.
Are you amending your motion to refer back to PZB? Is that a yes?
Yes.
The seconder agree?
Yes.
Alderman Wesley.
I think the whole thing is the conversation, how this came about, Mary, and you could clarify too. A developer came in here, which came in and said that he would, if I'm mistaken, it's not in our minutes, and I believe Jeff was going back and looked at the tape if it was made in there. So what action could we take, or we can't take any action on this outfit, knowing they made a commitment to us to do a mounting on your sign, and next thing you know, you got this huge sign. The other question is, that I had for you, is before he came in for variance, is it right that we issue a sign permit before he came into the planning and zoning? My question is, how could we get that one outfit that made a commitment to us to get that lowered? And that's why this is brought up. There was a sign put there that he made a statement to us, and where do we go for that?
Ms. Dixon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The issue before you this evening is not one particular property owner. It affects a number of property owners. So when you're considering this change, it's not going to be affecting just one property owner. It will affect a number of them. So that's why we would like to see it go back. To the extent you have an issue with one property owner, I have discussed this issue with our building department, and I've gotten the facts as to how this occurred. I can tell you that while we have not reviewed the tape, we've reviewed the minutes, and in the minutes of the approval of the consolidation of the properties, there certainly was a question raised by Alderman Winger relative to signage, but it's not clear. There was never, at least as to the minutes, the minutes are not clear as requiring the property owner to remove the signage, nor that he would agree to do that.
Okay.
So we can look at the tape. If that was the intent of the council, and it just didn't make it into the ordinance, then that's an error in the ordinance that was approved, and we can cure that. But if that was not the intent of the council at the time, then the property owner, the removal of a sign or the change of a sign was not part of the approval of the consolidation.
Then, Mr. Mayor, then I think we should direct staff not to issue any more permits of signs until this is resolved on that stretch of road. Could I do that or not?
Well, first I have an existing motion on the floor that I have to deal with first.
Okay.
Thereafter, we'll see if there's other motions. Alderman Winger was next.
Thank you. I have 3 items. First being that I would like to see us do no further work on a sign code ordinance amendment until we do understand the intersection and what we're going to do, until we memorialize that decision. I think it's inappropriate to start changing ordinances that we worked on for months and months and months because of one issue, when we have a whole intersection redesign of the city of Wooddale that is still on the table. So I am not in support of spending more staff time on this amendment until we understand the intersection. Secondly, in terms of the Sweet Baby Ray issue, I have a request to Mr. Murmas, if you can please have a root cause analysis done on what fell through here so we can avoid it in the future. I'm not exactly sure whether it didn't make it in the minutes and then the ordinance wasn't done appropriately. I seem to remember reviewing the ordinance that we put in front of this person and it looked appropriate to take down the sign pole. So I'm just not clear right now on what fell through here. And thirdly, my question to Ms. Dixon, if we gave the business owner a permit first, and then months went by, and then he comes in with a lot consolidation, and we say, take down the sign, he agrees, he's standing right there and he's agreeing with me, and then we sign the ordinance, and now he says, I got a permit so I don't have to do it, but the permit was to apparently replace the plastic part, the face. It was not a permit to keep your sign up forever and ever. It was to replace. He's more than welcome to replace the face, but he's supposed to take down that sign. I don't care if he replaces it a month before he takes it down. The point was to take it down.
I'm sorry, if I might answer. And what we're going to have to do is review the tape of the meeting. I can tell you that the minutes aren't as clear as what you're specifying here tonight. The minutes, from my recollection, indicate that you questioned him as to the signs, and his response, as in the minutes, was, I've taken care of it, I have the permits. That's what, and that's what the minutes say. It's not as clear as saying consolidation requires the removal of the sign. And typically when we put conditions in our ordinances, they're fairly spelled out. But Jeff and I will review that, and if we have to, Jeff and I will review the records as best as possible. If that was an error, then we'll communicate that to the property owner.
And then to review the ordinance, have you reviewed the ordinance for specifications and the conditions of removing the pole sign?
And that is why, when I first saw this, I took pause because my concern is these signs within the intersection study area were specifically exempted from amortization. If you remove that provision tonight, you're saying they are subject to amortization. When the amortization provision was first enacted, as I said, you were allowing 3 years or 5 years. Now, if you remove this, there are signs, including that one, that would have only 1 year for amortization.
I'm sorry, my question was specific to the ordinance that we did for Sweet Baby Ray business.
Right.
To do the lot consolidation, that in there, I believe there was a provision, you will remove pole sign within 30 days.
That is not a part of the ordinance from my recollection.
So it didn't make it in there. That's unfortunate. Thank you.
Alderman, please.
Got a question for Roger. Being that we have the sign ordinance and everything, I understand one sign, one lot, and all that stuff. When the lots are consolidated, do we have a rule that supersedes or overrules that one of the signs has to come down? Because right now he has 2 buildings, but I guess in this summer he's expanding. 2 buildings are all going to connect and everything when he expands the restaurant. But it's still one lot of record now. Shouldn't there only be one sign?
Alderman, please. The question and the answer are a little bit more complicated than yes or no. The point is with the fact that his properties, let me back up here. With respect to the consolidation, there is nothing that states specifically that if it's a property that has 2 signs currently, one even gets removed. What complicates this issue is the fact that he can have 2 signs. One of the signs, because he faces his property faces 2 streets, in the intersection, he has Irving Park Road and then the side street. So he does have frontage on 2 streets, which allows him a second sign. But also, too, is the fact that these signs are too close together on Irving Park Road. once again, though, backing up to this lot consolidation, the point is that this individual had come in much prior to him coming before this council for his lot consolidation. And there was no way for us to know that he was going to consolidate everything, and all he was going to be doing was a phase change. That's why he originally received that permit.
Alderman, please.
Okay, so being that he has two frontages, when this goes back to zoning board of appeals, if they could look at, when we say two frontages, we're talking about two main streets, like Irving Park and Wooddale Road, or Addison Road and Irving Park, not the side street and Irving Park. Can we do that?
Well, I was going to say, I don't think it's going back to ZBA. It's going back to PZB at the next available meeting.
Oh, please.
Just to further mention on that too, is we'll certainly be in discussion with the city attorney to make sure that everything is clarified appropriately.
Okay.
Alderman Coles, and then let's wrap this up.
All right, I got one thing to say. When we made up the sign ordinance, we said that no new signs that were coming in were no higher than 10 foot. Like the signs that we have in front of our building here, and in front of the sewer plant, and in front of Mike Malone's bowling alley, and new dentists, the two new dentists that are down the street on Irving Park. They're only 10 foot high. And we said that there was gonna be no new signs unless they were like that. And then he put up this pole sign. So he's actually going against the ordinance that we had, the original ordinance, before anything's been changed. So he should, the city should at least have him take it down. That's my opinion.
All right, the motion before us to refer back to committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed, motion carries.
Third item, no, that's Mr.
That's it.
I abstained on the last one.
Okay.
Very good.
That, Mr. Mayor, that concludes what I intended to be a brief report.
If there's nothing further, that brings us to Public Health, Safety, and Judiciary. Alderman Coles.
No report.
Public Works, Alderman Winger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a report and recommendation in front of us. However, I am certainly going to not approve the recommendation until we do have a better understanding